Some factions in Skyrim burn bright. The Companions boast glory, the College of Winterhold hoards magic and secrets, the Thieves Guild rules shadows, the Dark Brotherhood bleeds myth and murder. But one group walks the roads, quiet, overlooked, fewer every year. You don't find them in grand halls, you don't hear bards sing their names. They wear no fine armour, they speak of mercy, but carry silver and fire. And if you do hear about them, it's usually after something terrible has already happened. They are the Vigilants of Stendarr, and they are the loneliest faction in all of Skyrim. The Vigilants worship Stendarr, the Aedra of mercy, justice, and righteous endurance. He is the patron of healers and judges, defenders of the weak and the broken. But his mercy has limits. To the Vigilants, Daedra are an infection, vampires are a disease, necromancy is a violation of natural law, lycanthropy is also corruption. And so they hunt, not for glory, not for gold, but for purity. They walk Skyrim's roads in pairs or alone, always in their signature robes. They stop you with stern warnings. You wear the armour of the Daedra, one might say. Take care, they do not claim you. They don't fight for a banner, they fight for balance. But balance rarely fights back fairly. The first time most players see a Vigilant of Stendarr, it's by chance. They're walking the road, and most players pass by them. They aren't quest givers, they don't offer rewards, they don't unlock new powers or give you a horse. They're just there, preaching, patrolling, warning. They carry silver swords and cure disease on sight. They ask you if you need help, they ask you if you've seen signs of Daedric corruption. And then they're gone. Off to fight something alone. Off to die somewhere no one will ever find them. You can visit their base. It's not grand, not fortified, not holy. The whole of the Vigilant sits just south of Dawnstar, small, stone, and easily missed. No banners fly, no guards patrol. It looks like a roadside inn with no guests. Inside are beds, shrines, and a few silver weapons. The library is small, the food is modest. There's no choir, no leadership council, no paladin in shining armour. Just a handful of devoted clerics preparing for war, no one else is fighting. And when you arrive later in the game, if you have the Dawnguard DLC installed, you'll find something else. Nothing. Because the hall has burned down. The Vigilants are dead and no one mourns them at all. The Vigilants have one mission: root out supernatural evil. But they are not warriors, are they? They wear robes, not steel. They walk instead of ride. They carry silver swords, but few are trained to use them well. They go up against Daedra, necromancers, vampires, and werewolves. And they lose. Constantly. They have no allies, the College of Winterhold dismisses them, the Companions hate them, even the Dawnguard, who later rise to face the vampire threat, mock their piety. The Vigilants are outnumbered, outmatched, and outfinanced. But they keep going, because this isn't a faction built for power, it's built for belief, and belief in Skyrim is rarely rewarded. The Vigilants seem like they should be terrifying. They burn books, they burn witches, they exterminate monsters without hesitation. Their worldview is binary, light or darkness, nothing in between. But in practice, they are harmless, because no one takes them seriously. They lecture passing adventurers while Oblivion gates smoulder in ancient ruins. They preach about Daedric corruption while their shrine stands untouched. They die to random vampires while the real threat gathers underground. And the world doesn't really listen, even as the threat grows, especially then, because Skyrim is too tired, too divided, too proud, and the Vigilants are easy to ignore. If you install the Dawnguard expansion, the Vigilants don't get a new questline. They don't get a redemption arc, they get erased. When the vampire clan launches their assault, the whole of the Vigilant is destroyed in a single night. All that remains are corpses, ashes, and the occasional haunted whisper. No reinforcers come, no cities respond, no bards sing. The Dawnguard rise from the ruins tougher, colder, and better armed. But they don't mourn. The Vigilants weren't soldiers, they were martyrs. And in the world of Skyrim, martyrs die quietly. The Keeper is the highest ranking member of the Vigilance scene in game. She appears once, she speaks softly, and she tries to help. And then she dies off screen. Her body lies in the ruins of the hall, burnt alongside her brothers and sisters. You can loot her robes, her silver sword, her body isn't marked, her name isn't whispered in Windhelm or recorded in Solitude. She dies the way most Vigilants do, quietly, with purpose, and completely alone. It would be easy to feel nothing for the Vigilants. They are, after all, extremists. They preach destruction for anything they deem unnatural. They kill before they ask questions. They don't believe in cure or redemption, only in fire and steel. In another story, they'd be the villains. And yet, Skyrim doesn't treat them like tyrants. It treats them like ghosts. Because maybe the real tragedy isn't that their beliefs are dangerous. It's that they never hold the chance to become dangerous. They never become powerful enough to become a threat. They died in a corner of the map, ideologically untested and morally unchallenged, and forgotten. There is no vigilant faction path, no questline, no dialogue tree that lets you serve Stendarr. You can wear their robes, carry their silver swords, and speak their words, but you cannot become one of them. You can only watch them fade. The companions have a hall, the mages do have a college. Even the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood have full questline, character arcs, and homes to return to. But the Vigilants, they don't recruit you. They just wait to be destroyed. And when they are, the world goes on. Even after the hall is gone, you still see them, here and there, on roads, in caves, and near shrines. Vigilants still patrol, still preach, still try. And you realise something. The Order isn't completely gone. It's just shattered, broken into survivors, wanderers, and believers. A flicker in a storm that's already swallowed their brothers. They walk alone now, not as a faction, but as remnants. And every time you see one, you wonder how long they'll last. Skyrim is full of factions that evolve, crumble, and rebuild. The Vigilants do not. They are the only faction built to fail, and built to keep going anyway. They are the paladins who arrive too late, the priests who fight in silence, the only people in Skyrim trying to stop the darkness before it grows teeth. And the world ignores them, laughs at them, watches them die, and moves on. But somewhere in the fog, a Vigilant of Stendarr still walks, alone. And if that's not the loneliest thing in Skyrim, then nothing is. In Skyrim, factions are not just clubs or organisations. They are entire worlds that players step into. The Companions promise honour, the College of Winterhold offers knowledge, the Dark Brotherhood whispers of murder and fate. But no faction embodies the art of deception, secrecy, and manipulation quite like the Thieves Guild. Hidden in the damp sewers of Riften, the Guild is not only a collection of criminals, but a shadow empire, controlling smuggling routes, extorting businesses, and bending the will of an entire city. While other factions in Skyrim draw their strength from tradition, honour, or divine power, the Thieves Guild thrives on something more insidious: fear and influence. It is for these reasons, their underhanded methods, their systematic corruption, and their ability to remain hidden in plain sight, that the Thieves Guild earns the title as the most problematic faction in all of Skyrim. Riften itself sets the stage for the Thieves Guild's dominance. The city is the most corrupt in Skyrim, a place where guards look the other way for coin, where the Jarl's court is heavily influenced by Maven Blackbriar, and where ordinary citizens live in constant fear of extortion. Unlike Solitude, which radiates stability, or Whiterun, which acts as a neutral heart of Skyrim, Riften is rotting from the inside. Its marketplace bustles with trade, but behind every stall lies an unspoken truth. The Guild controls what happens here. This atmosphere of moral decay makes Riften the perfect home for the Thieves Guild. It's not that the Guild simply operates within Riften. It owns it, directly and indirectly. No other faction is so thoroughly tied to the corruption of an entire city. The Thieves Guild thrives on secrecy. Its base of operations is the Ragged Flagon, buried beneath the city in a maze of sewers and canals called the Ratway. To even reach the guild, the Dragonborn must navigate through thieves, cutthroats, and drunks, symbolizing how the path into the guild itself is a descent into the underworld. The Ragged Flagon is more than just a hideout. It's a shadow economy. Smugglers, informants, fencers, and mercenaries gather here, away from the prying eyes of the surface. It is a city beneath a city, where coin changes hands, contracts are made, and lives are ruined without ever touching the daylight. This hidden structure makes the guild different from other factions. The companions proudly train. The college towers visibly over Winterhold. The Dark Brotherhood hides its base, yes, but even it lacks the sense of an underground society that the guild embodies. The Thieves Guild's environment screams secrecy, deception, and a life lived in the shadows. Perhaps the most devious aspects of the Thieves Guild is not its heists or burglaries, but its quiet grip on the lives of ordinary citizens. Through intimidation and extortion, the guild forces Riften's shopkeepers to pay protection money. At first glance, these may seem like small operations. Lean on a blacksmith, rough up a merchant, smash a few items in someone's stall. But the larger picture reveals a system of fear. Every shopkeeper in Riften knows that the guild can ruin them at any time. Even when Maven Blackbriar isn't directly mentioned, her shadow looms behind every transaction. Unlike the Dark Brotherhood, which kills targets in secret, or the companions who take contracts for glory, the Thieves Guild thrives on systematic oppression. Their crimes are not spectacular, but mundane. Woven into daily life, that is what makes them so insidious. They turn crime into governance. The most devious part of the Thieves Guild is not its members in the Ratway, but its patron, Maven Blackbriar. Maven is not officially part of the guild, yet she is the beating heart of it. She bankrolls in its operation, shields it from legal consequences, and leverages it for her own personal empire. The guards in Riften answer to her more than to the Jarl. Even the Guildmaster, once restored, works under her thumb. This is what sets the Thieves Guild apart from other factions. No matter how far you rise in its ranks, you are never truly in control. The Dark Brotherhood makes you a listener. The college names you Archmage, but the Thieves Guild, you are just Maven's servant. This dynamic makes the faction particularly devious. It is not about personal empowerment, but submission to a crime lord who embodies corruption at its highest level. Maven is the spider at the center of the web, and everyone else, Dragonborn included, dances on her strings. Joining the Thieves Guild is unlike joining other factions. While the companions in college welcome you with rituals and traditions, the Thieves Guild tests you through manipulation and crime. You are asked to bully shopkeepers, sabotage livelihoods, and betray trust before you are even considered. This initiation is telling. The guild doesn't want heroes or seekers of knowledge. It wants people willing to do whatever it takes for coin, no matter the cost to others. By forcing the Dragonborn into petty, moral, dubious acts right from the start, the guild establishes its problematic nature immediately. The deeper the player goes, the more the jobs reflect large-scale manipulation, forging documents, framing innocence, breaking alliances. It is not about violence, but control, about pulling strings and ensuring others dance to your will. One of the guild's most interesting aspects is its narrative arc. When you first encounter them, they are in a decline, their influence waning, their numbers shrinking, their enemies emboldened. The streets of Riften whisper about their weaknesses, and many citizens believe the guild's reign is over. But through the Dragonborn's action, the guild rises again, reclaiming power not just in Riften, but across Skyrim as well. Gold flows back into the coffers, influence spreads, and the guild reasserts itself as a shadow empire. This fall and rise structure highlights the guild's adaptability. Unlike the Dark Brotherhood, which collapses entirely in Skyrim, the Thieves Guild thrives in the endgame, re-establishing itself as a major force. This resilience is part of what makes them devious. No matter how far they fall, they find a way to claw back to power, using lies, deals, and betrayals. While the Thieves Guild operates as a collective, it is ultimately an extension of the Blackbriar family. Maven's control ensures that her descendants and allies benefit from the guild's dominance. In this way, the guild becomes less about thievery and more about dynasty, ensuring that corruption is passed down like a crown. This fusion of organised crime and noble family legacy makes the guild particularly unsettling. It is not just random theft, but institutionalised corruption. It blurs the line between criminal underworld and legitimate power, showing how deeply the shadows can intertwine with Skyrim's political landscape. When compared to Skyrim's other factions, the Thieves Guild stands apart in its problems. The Companions, honourable mercenaries bound by tradition. Their secret is more curse than scheme. The College of Winterhold, scholars and mages seeking knowledge, dangerous but not manipulative at all. The Dark Brotherhood, assassins who kill for contracts, terrifying but straightforward in their purpose. The Thieves Guild, they don't just steal, they dominate. Their crime is systematic, their corruption total, and their power hidden behind noble facades. It is this difference, the blending of crime with politics, and the ability to make corruption invisible, that earns them their title. When you first hear about the Bard's College in Solitude, you might imagine a place alive with music. You expect lute strings plucking in harmony, warm laughter echoing through stone halls, and bright-eyed students perfecting the songs that will echo in taverns across the land. And at first glance, the building does fit that image. Beautiful architecture, well-lit interiors, and a proud history. But then you start to notice the silence. The college has no classes, there are no real performances, its halls feel unpopulated, its members strangely static. The people here have names, but few stories. You begin to realise something unsettling. The Bard's College is not the thriving institution you thought it was. In fact, it might be the most irrelevant and overlooked faction in all of Skyrim. And perhaps it always has been. In the Elder Scrolls universe, bards have played an important role. They're not just musicians, they're the keepers of history, the chroniclers of great deeds, and the voices of rebellion when courage is needed the most. The Bard's College in Solitude was once a prestigious institution, located in Skyrim's capital of culture and politics. It should, by all rights, be a centre for artistry. Historically, it attracted talented performers from across Tamriel. But by the time the Dragonborn arrives, this grand legacy feels faded. The college is more of a relic than a living, breathing school. Its members, though charming in their own way, don't seem to be learning or teaching. They're simply there, existing between dusty bookshelves and empty performance stages. The Elder Scrolls lore tells us the college was important once. The game shows us something else entirely. When you approach the Bard's College, the building stands proudly along Solitude's upper district, near the Blue Palace. It's large, stately, and undeniably well kept. You might expect a recruitment process, an audition, or at least a trial. Instead, you're pulled into the college through a favour for the headmaster, a quest involving a lost verse from King Olaf's verse. The initiation is surprisingly anticlimactic. You don't prove yourself as a musician, you don't learn a song, you don't even play an instrument. You simply recover a piece of writing, return it, and watch a festival unfold. And just like that, you're a bard. Except you're not given classes, or lessons, or a role to play. You've joined a faction that doesn't actually do anything. Walk through the Bard's College and you'll meet several named NPCs. They each hold titles suggesting a speciality: drum, flute, lute. You might think this means they can teach you to play, but their lessons are just small skill boosts tied to short fetch quests. After that, they have little to say beyond generic greetings. There's no sense of progression. The college doesn't seem to have schedules, rehearsals, or recitals. The so-called students are nowhere to be found. The entire place feels like a museum display, a snapshot of a once thriving institution frozen in time. Even in a game full of factions with flawed structures, the Bard's College feels particularly hollow. It's as though Bethesda built the framework for a deep role-playing experience and then stopped halfway. The Bard's College questline is perhaps the shortest of any major faction in Skyrim. You start with Tending the Flames, the King Olaf quest. It's an enjoyable little adventure taking you to Dead Man's Respite, where you recover the lost verse. The highlight is seeing the burning of the king at the Solitude Festival, a rare and purely cultural event in Skyrim. But then that's it. The follow-up quests are 3 small radiant jobs from the college staff. Recover a flute, a drum, and a lute from random dungeons. They're forgettable, mechanically identical, and carry no narrative weight. When you finish them, nothing changes in the college. You receive a few gold coins and skill boosts, but no new opportunities, no recognition, no sense that you've advanced as a bard. Compared to the Companions, the Thieves Guild, or the College of Winterhold, the Bard's College doesn't even pretend to offer a storyline. It's not just forgotten by the world, it feels forgotten by its own designers. If you linger in the Bard's College for too long, the quiet becomes oppressive. The halls are spacious and full of light, but they're empty. NPCs wander aimlessly, not interacting with one another. No music plays unless you force it by requesting a performance from a wandering bard in a tavern, not from anyone here in the actual Bard's College. You'd expect this to be a lively counterpoint to Skyrim's many battle-worn halls and dark dungeons. Instead, it feels abandoned in spirit. Even Solitude's tavern, the Winking Skeever, feels more like a bardic hall than the Bard's College itself. The Dragonborn, savior of the world, can become a member of the faction and still find themselves standing alone in a silent room, wondering if anyone in this building even remembers their name. Lore-wise, the Bard's College should be one of the most politically and culturally influential factions in Skyrim. Bards are storytellers, and stories shape public opinion. A good song can spark rebellion, inspire warriors, or preserve a king's legacy. And yet, in Skyrim's civil war, a conflict perfectly suited for propaganda, the Bard's College does nothing. No songs are written about the Stormcloaks or the Empire. No travelling performers are seen swaying hearts in taverns. No one even comments on the war unless prompted. This is where the forgotten part of their identity becomes almost tragic. They could have been Skyrim's voice in a time of chaos. Instead, they're a background decoration in the safest, wealthiest city in the province. It's almost cruel to compare the Bard's College to Skyrim's other factions. The Dark Brotherhood is a shadowy family of assassins with a full questline, a base that changes over time, and characters you grow attached to. The College of Winterhold lets you rise through the ranks, learn magic, and eventually lead the institution. Even the small Blackbriar family in Riften has a more active influence and involvement in the game world. The Bard's College, on the other hand, doesn't evolve. It doesn't respond to your achievements. You're not given a title beyond a member. It's not just forgotten by players, it seems to be forgotten by the game itself. Many players go through the entire Skyrim playthrough without ever setting foot in the Bard's College. Part of the reason is its location. Solitude is far to the northwest, often visited late in the game. Another reason is that the college offers no tangible rewards beyond skill boosts in speech and some gold. There's no armor set, no unique weapons, and no followers tied to it. Even the main questline leading there isn't advertised. You won't be naturally pointed towards it unless you happen to overhear the right conversation or stumble upon the headmaster. By the time most players reach Solitude, they're deep in other questlines and see no reason to spend any time on a faction that offers so little. The saddest part about the Bard's College is how much potential it has. Imagine being able to perform in taverns across Skyrim, winning gold and influence based on your speech skill. Imagine helping to write ballads about your adventures, or spreading propaganda for your chosen side in the Civil War. Imagine bards travelling with you, their music changing based on the region you're in. The framework for such a system is here. The NPCs exist, the building exists, and the idea exists. But instead of becoming a hub for player creativity and roleplay, the Bard's College is a hollow shell, a faction that exists in name only. So why bother joining the Bard's College at all? For completionists, it's simply another faction to tick off the list. For role players, it can be a headcanon choice, imagining your Dragonborn's life as a wandering poet. For modders, it's fertile ground to expand upon. And indeed, several mods overhaul the college to give it more quests, performances, and relevance. But in vanilla Skyrim, the college remains a curiosity, a stop on the way to greater things. It's a place you visit once, maybe twice, and then like the rest of the world, you forget it's there. In a world of dragons, assassins, mages, and thieves, the Bard's College is a whisper. It sits in a beautiful hall in solitude, surrounded by people with titles and instruments, yet no music fills the air. The members are more like caretakers of an empty theatre than active participants in Skyrim's story. They could have been powerful, they could have been relevant, they could have been the voice of the people in a time of war. Instead, they are the most forgotten faction in all of Skyrim, and perhaps somewhere in these quiet walls, they know it. Markarth is a city of contradictions, built into the crumbling ruins of the Dwemer. Its golden towers rise proudly above, while its underbelly festers with poverty, corruption, and shadows. And hidden deeper still, below even the reach of the Silverblood family's power or the Jarl's decrees, lurks something more sinister, a secret faction most players might never stumble upon. It's not a guild you can join through banners or oaths. It's not an organisation shaping the Civil War or Skyrim's future. Instead, it's a gathering of outcasts, bound by a hunger that is a bit more taboo than necromancy or Daedric worship itself. Cannibalism. This is the Coven of Namira, a faction so isolated, so detached from Skyrim's world, that it almost feels like a secret meant to remain undiscovered. To understand her coven, one must first know Namira, the Daedric prince they serve. Namira is called the Lady of Decay. She is the mistress of repulsion, darkness, vermin, and filth. Unlike princes who tempt mortals with power or beauty, Namira offers only revulsion. Her followers embrace the aspect of life that most reject: rot, death, and ugliness. Cannibalism in her eyes is a form of worship. To consume the flesh of the dead is to embrace decay, to revel in what others fear. Her faithful are often described as repulsive, not just in habit, but in appearance. It is fitting that her Skyrim cult hides in the shadows of Markarth, one of the bleakest cities in the province. You never hear about Namira's coven openly. No citizen of Markarth will whisper about it. No guard will mention it. Instead, you stumble upon it almost by accident. It begins at the Hall of the Dead in Markarth, where you overhear a priest, the priest of Arche, complaining about bodies being desecrated. If you press him, he confesses something horrifying. Corpses in the catacombs are being eaten. This is your first hint that something unnatural stirs in Markarth's foundations. If you investigate, you'll meet Eola, a mysterious woman who openly admits to her cannibalistic practices and invites you to a banquet. And just like that, without fanfare or build-up, you're suddenly standing on the threshold of Skyrim's strangest, most isolated faction. The questline tied to Namira's coven is chillingly direct. Eola asks you to lure the priest, the innocent priest of Arche, to a feast. Once there, the coven reveals itself, a circle of cannibals gathered around a long stone table waiting for flesh. The player is forced into a choice. Do you participate or do you resist? If you indulge, you carve into the priest's body and eat with the coven, solidifying your place among them. For your loyalty, you're given Namira's ring, an artifact that increases health from feeding on corpses. It's one of the darkest quests in Skyrim, not because of blood or gore, but because of its moral implications. You are asked to betray trust, commit sacrilege, and engage in something profoundly taboo. And when it's over, the faction fades back into silence. The coven is made up of scattered, lonely individuals drawn together by their shared hunger. Each one feels out of place in Skyrim society, their true selves hidden until the feast. Eola, the recruiter, is perhaps the most vocal, cold, calculating, and strangely charismatic. She serves as the coven's mouthpiece. The priest, though not a member, becomes the symbol of their betrayal. His innocence highlights the depravity of what follows. Around the table you'll find other citizens who, outside this quest, blend seamlessly back into Skyrim's world. They aren't enemies, they aren't villains, they're people you might pass in a marketplace without knowing the darkness within them. This blending of the ordinary with the monstrous makes the Coven unsettling. They don't live in caves or shrines, they literally walk among us. Unlike the Thieves Guild in Riften or the Dark Brotherhood in Falkreath, Namira's Coven really has no headquarters beyond a hidden chamber. They don't wield power in politics or war, they don't offer jobs, progression, or a hierarchy to climb. Their entire presence is tied to a single quest line, and once it ends, they disperse back into obscurity. This is why the Coven feels so isolated. They exist entirely on the fringes of Skyrim's world, untouched by the grander conflicts. You can complete the quest, acquire the ring, and never hear from them again. No guard will mention the murders, no bard will sing of the feast. It's almost as though Bethesda wanted them forgotten. What makes Namira's cult feel even lonelier than the others is the nature of their worship. In Skyrim, Daedric worship is not uncommon. You'll find shrines to Azura and cults of Mehrunes Dagon. These princes are dangerous, but their followers often hold real influence. Namira, however, represents something so viral that even other Daedric cultists would recoil. Cannibalism is not a power fantasy, it's degradation. The rewards are meager, the Ring of Namira pales in comparison to artifacts like Azura's Star or Dawnbreaker. In gameplay terms, the faction is optional. Its rewards are underwhelming, its presence fleeting, its narrative terms, it is feared, hidden, and despised. Thus, Namira's Coven is undoubtedly isolated, shunned by society and ignored by players. One of the strangest details about this faction is how little the world reacts. If you kill the priest, no one in Markarth mourns him, no new dialogue acknowledges his absence, the city carries on as if nothing happened, as if the priest disappearing is just an ordinary affair. Similarly, if you spare him and refuse to join, the Coven simply retreats back into the shadows, their hunger unquenched but unpunished. Again, the city never speaks of it. This silence contributes to the sense that Namira's Coven exists in a vacuum. Their feast is a dark secret buried beneath the stone city, unseen, unremarked, and unresolved. Contrast Namira's Coven with the Dark Brotherhood, who also practice murder in secret. The Brotherhood has a sanctuary, a hierarchy, and a lengthy quest line. They leave marks on Skyrim's political landscape. The Coven, by comparison, feels skeletal. One quest, one banquet, and nothing more. No further involvement and no future. It's even less developed than the Bard's College, often mocked for being underwhelming, but at least the Bards have a hall, multiple NPCs who speak more than just a few words, and a small sequence of quests. Namira's faithful barely qualify as a faction at all. This raises the question, why even include them? The tragedy of Namira's Coven is their isolation. Unlike warriors or thieves who find family in their guilds, Namira's followers have no friends beyond the feast. They don't live together, they don't build a community, they came together only to eat and then they scatter. Their faction is less of an organisation and more of a temporary congregation of lonely outcasts. This loneliness reflects Namira herself. She is a prince of decay, of isolation, of filth. To follow her is to be cast out, to walk among others while hiding your true self. For players, this makes the faction memorable in concept, but hollow in execution. You are left with unease and not belonging. So why does the Coven of Namira exist in Skyrim at all? It doesn't shape the main story, it doesn't expand into a faction questline, it doesn't leave lasting consequences. But perhaps that's the point. Namira's followers aren't supposed to feel powerful or relevant. They're supposed to feel repulsive, forgotten, hidden away in the cracks of civilization. Their very irrelevance is their identity. Theirs is not a story of glory, but of secrecy. Not a tale of triumph, but of shame. And in that way, the most isolated faction in Skyrim perfectly embodies the god they serve. No one remembers the feast you attended in the shadows. No one cares that a priest lies dead, consumed by his fellow citizens. But you remember the cold stone table, the sound of the knife, the faces of ordinary people revealed as monsters. You remember the ring, warm with power yet heavy with its guilt. And as you walk out into Skyrim's open air, you realise something chilling. The Coven of Namira still exists. They are still out there hiding in plain sight. And that makes them the most isolated faction in Skyrim. So forgotten, so irrelevant that perhaps they exist for no reason at all. And maybe that's what makes them so unforgettable. In a land torn apart by dragons, politics, and civil war, the word honour has lost much of its meaning. Skyrim is a country of divided loyalties, Nords against Imperials, Stormcloaks against Jarls, gods against men. Everywhere the air reeks of pride and vengeance. Yet amid all the chaos, there stands one hall, one family that still upholds the old ways. Not the laws of kings or the ambitions of empires, but the simple creed of living and dying with honour. That hall is in Whiterun, and its family is the Companions. They are not an army, nor a guild, nor a cult. They are something older, a brotherhood of warriors bound not by coin, but by loyalty. In a world that worships power, they worship courage. In a world ruled by greed, they cherish camaraderie. To join the Companions is not to gain wealth or fame. It is to embrace a way of life that demands strength, humility, and sacrifice. And that is why among all factions in Skyrim, from the Thieves' Guild Shadows to the Dark Brotherhood's Whispers, none can truly claim to be as honourable as the Companions. High in Whiterun, just below the Skyforge and overlooking the city, lies the ancient mead hall. From the outside, it seems modest, a longhouse like any other, built of timber and tradition. But within its walls lies something sacred, history carved into every beam, echoing with laughter, song, and battle stories of those who came before. The Companions have existed since the first great hero of Skyrim led his people across the Sea of Ghosts to reclaim their homeland from the elves. His 500 companions became legends, their courage shaping the very foundations of Nord identity. The hall itself is said to be the oldest building in Skyrim still in use. It's wood brought from ships of Ysgramor's fleet. That fact alone makes it more than a guild hall. It is a living relic, a sanctuary for warriors who continue the oldest tradition of their race, fighting not for politics, but for purpose. Every plank, every trophy, every scar in its walls tell a story. And when you enter it for the first time, you're not stepping into a faction, you're stepping into history itself. Unlike other factions, the Companions have no written code, no book of rules, no oath sworn before gods. Their laws are simple, spoken only in deeds and understood through fellowship. To be a companion is to live by 3 unspoken truths. Strength is sacred, honour is eternal, a shield brother's life is worth more than gold. They fight for contracts, yes, but not as mercenaries. Their work is a means to test their mettle and to serve Skyrim, not to enrich themselves. When a farmer needs a beast slain or a village seeks justice, the Companions answer not out of greed, but out of duty. They believe that battle reveals truth, not just about strength, but about character. Every fight, every scar is a lesson. Every victory is shared, and every loss is mourned together. Their mead hall is filled not with wealth, but with fellowship. In it, a beggar and a noble can drink side by side as equals. There is no rank that separates brothers and sisters, only deeds that define them. That in itself is a rare and noble thing in Skyrim. Beneath the surface of the Companions' honour lies a secret known only to a chosen few, the Circle, the inner council who lead the Order. These are the strongest warriors, hand-picked for their skill and loyalty. But they also share a hidden burden. They are werewolves bound to the Daedric Prince. To outsiders, this revelation is shocking. How can a group that prides itself on honour serve a Daedra of the Hunt? But to the Circle, The curse is both a gift and a test. The beast blood grants them unmatched strength and vitality, yet it also tempts them to forsake their humanity. This duality, man and beast, honor and instinct, defines the heart of the companions' struggle. Their greatest leaders, Kodlak, chief among them, sees the curse as something to overcome. He dreams not of endless hunting grounds, but of Sovereigngard, the Nord's true afterlife. He believes that true honor lies not in power, but in resisting it. Through him, the companions embody the idea that even in a world of gods and monsters, a mortal's worth is measured by their choices. If the mead hall is the heart of the companions, then Kodlak is its soul. An old warrior with a gentle voice and a philosopher's mind, Kodlak stands apart from the usual image of a Nord hero. He's thoughtful where others are brash, wise where others are wild. He remembers the glory of Ysgramor's days, but he also understands the need for restraint. To Kodlak, honor is not found in battle for battle's sake, but in fighting for something greater than one's self. His struggle with the beast blood mirrors Skyrim's eternal conflict between savagery and civilization. And when he is slain in the Silver Hand's raid, his death is not just a personal tragedy, it is a symbolic loss for Skyrim itself. In the final words and the quest to cleanse his soul, the companions rediscover what they stand for. The Dragonborn's choice to avenge and purify his spirit becomes an act of redemption, restoring the honor that defines their order. Kodlak's story is proof that the companions are not just warriors, they are guardians of the soul. The companions are not defined by bloodlines or rank. They are a family forged in battle, a circle of equals. When one member falls, the others drink to their memory. When one triumphs, the whole hall celebrates. This bond is deeper than loyalty. It is kinship born of shared danger and mutual respect. You see it in Ayla the Huntress, fierce and unwavering, who honors both her beastly nature and her humanity. You hear it in Vilkas and Farkas, the twin brothers whose devotion to the companions eclipse everything else. Every one of them, from the greatest whelp to the harbinger, lives and dies for their shield siblings. In a land where everyone fights for themselves, the thieves for profit, the assassins for contracts, the mages for knowledge, the companions fight for each other. That alone makes them Skyrim's truest warriors. It's no coincidence that the companions call Whiterun home. Whiterun sits at the crossroads of Skyrim, geographically and symbolically. It's a place of balance, neither fully aligned with the Empire nor the Stormcloaks, a city where merchants, soldiers, and travellers all meet. That neutrality reflects the companions' own stance. They do not pick sides in Skyrim's civil war, nor do they swear featally to any Jarl or king. Their loyalty is to their own code, not to crowns or politics. While Whiterun's people debate allegiance, the companions remain constant, a reminder of what it means to be a Nord before all else. Their hall stands just beneath the Skyforge, tended by Erland Greymane, the greatest smith in Skyrim. The forge itself is a symbol of divine craftsmanship, believed to be blessed by the gods. Every weapon and shield forged there becomes an heirloom, a piece of the companion's legacy that will outlast its wielder. In that sense, the hall and the Skyforge are more than places. They are eternal flames of Nord identity. To truly understand why the companions are the most honourable faction in Skyrim, one must compare them to the others. The Thieves' Guild hides in shadows, bound by lies and betrayal. Their loyalty is bought with gold. The Dark Brotherhood kills without consequence, glorifying death for its own sake. The College of Winterhold seeks knowledge but not wisdom, wielding power without understanding the cost. The Stormcloaks and Imperials fight for pride and politics, not people. Only the companions stand apart. They kill when they must, but never without reason. They fight not for wealth or power, but for honour of battle and the bonds it forges. Their greatest victories are not in slaying dragons or conquering cities, but in upholding an ancient truth, that courage and loyalty are worth more than crowns or coin. In a world drowning in greed, the companions are the last breath of honour left in Skyrim's lungs. At night, when Whiterun sleeps, the fires of the hall still burn. You can hear the laughter, the clatter of mugs, the ring of steel. The companions will never rule Skyrim. They will never build empires or rewrite history, but they will endure, just as they always have. Because honour does not fade. It passes from one shield to another, from one soul to the next, like the eternal flames of the Skyforge. And as long as warriors gather beneath its light, Skyrim will never truly fall. For in that hall of mead and memory, the companions remain the most honourable faction in all of Skyrim. Skyrim is a land defined by its extremes. Blizzards that swallow mountains, warriors who carve legends, and politics that seem forever on the edge of eruption. But nothing exemplifies Skyrim's contradictions more than the presence of the Imperials, the human race whose influence stretches across continents, yet fractures the moment it meets Nordic traditions. The Imperials are often seen as the polished opposite of the rugged Nord, the diplomat against the warrior, the bureaucrat against the berserker. They bring law, civilization, tax, commerce, and treaties. They bring soldiers in red, embassies brimming with scrolls, and officials who speak softly but rule firmly. And yet, for all their supposed order, they bring confusion, deep political and moral. Because when the player arrives in Skyrim, the Imperials are not triumphant rulers. They are not proud conquerors. They are not symbols of stability. They are a divided empire on the brink of collapse, clinging to a land that no longer wants them. To understand Skyrim, you must first understand the Imperials, not their myths, not their propaganda, but their strange, tense existence within a province that has stopped listening. By the time the Dragonborn enters Skyrim, the Empire is a corpse still pretending to breathe. The glory of the Septim dynasty is gone, the dragonfires are extinguished, the Oblivion Crisis left the Empire scarred, weakened and desperate. Hammerfell is fractured, the Thalmor have their claws in their throat. Yet still, the Empire marches on. Imperials cling to a kind of ceremonial strength. Their legions still patrol, their banners still fly, and their commanders still speak with confidence. But beneath every order lies panic, because they know something the Nords refuse to admit. Without Skyrim, the Empire dies. This is why the Imperials fight so furiously for a province that hates them. Skyrim is the last true pillar holding up their collapsing world. If Skyrim falls to rebellion, every other territory will follow. The Empire is not expanding, it is surviving. The core of Imperial identity has always been order, law, administration, disciplined armies, and a culture built around cohesion rather than personal glory. They value diplomacy over war, negotiation over bloodshed, and structure over chaos. In Cyrodiil, this works, but in Skyrim, Imperial order feels like a cage built around people who worship freedom. To a Nord, an Imperial general is not a protector. He's an outsider telling them how to live. An Imperial tax collector is not a civil servant. He's a parasite draining their land. An Imperial treaty is not a compromise. It's a betrayal. Imperial culture, so successful in the Heartland, fractures the moment it lands in Windhelm or Whiterun. Their very identity is incompatible with Nordic independence. This is the first flaw in this presence. They cannot rule Skyrim without changing Skyrim, and they cannot change Skyrim without provoking it. General Tullius is the embodiment of Imperial dilemma. He is not cruel, not incompetent, and not corrupt. He is, in fact, one of the few genuinely good leaders in the game, disciplined, intelligent, and dedicated to stability. And yet, Skyrim despises him. Why? Because he represents a foreign system that was never designed for the Nord way of life. Tullius speaks like a man handling a problem, not people. He sees Ulfric not as a hero or a tyrant. but as a disruptive variable. He doesn't hate Nords, he simply doesn't understand them. Their culture is noise, their traditions distractions, their religion irrelevant. To Tullius, the war is not emotional, it is strategic, and to Skyrim, that makes him the enemy. The tragedy is that Tullius fights for unity while creating deeper division. He wants peace but fuels rebellion. He wants to strengthen Skyrim but becomes the symbol of Skyrim's weakness. He is the imperial paradox made flesh. Nothing has shaped Skyrim's hatred for the Empire more than the White Gold Concordat, the treaty signed after the Great War between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion. To Imperials, the treaty was necessary. To Nords, it was treason. The banning of Talos worship, Skyrim's most sacred religious tradition, cut deep into the soul of the province. It shocked the Nords, humiliated them, and planted the seeds for civil war. The fault lines were clear. The Empire believed temporary sacrifice would ensure long-term survival. The Nords believed sacrifice of faith was death of identity. The Imperials saw strategy, the Nords saw submission, and the Thalmor saw opportunity. The Concordat didn't just weaken the Empire, it split it from within. Skyrim became the province that said no, and the Imperials, the enforcers of the treaty, became the enemy even in the lands they had sworn to protect. The average Imperial soldier in Skyrim is a tragic figure. He serves a nation that is not fully his. He defends people who do not want his help. He enforces laws he does not believe in. He fights a war he does not understand. Many of them joined the Legion for honor only to arrive in Skyrim and become the villains in someone else's story. They are tasked with keeping peace, but are treated as invaders. They stand against Ulfric's rebellion not because they hate Nords, but because they believe that if the Empire collapses, every province will fall to the Dominion. This is the tragedy of the Legionnaires. They might be fighting for the future of Tamriel, but Skyrim sees only the chains of Cyrodiil. Perhaps the most damning element of Imperial confusion is their unspoken relationship with the Thalmor. The Aldmeri Dominion claims not to control the Empire, but their actions, agents, and audacity say otherwise. Their embassy sits proudly in Skyrim, their Justicars roam freely, and their henchmen arrest, kill, and interrogate with impunity. They openly exploit the civil war, stating in their own documents that a weakened empire benefits the Dominion, a victorious empire also benefits the Dominion, and a victorious Stormcloak rebellion also benefits the Dominion. Every outcome favours them, and the Imperials who rely on treaty cannot openly oppose them. Thus, the Empire appears to Skyrim not as sovereign power, but as a dog strangled by its own leash. This is the greatest confusion at the heart of Imperial identity. How can a nation claim to rule Skyrim when it cannot even protect its own people from its allies? But the confusion goes both ways. While the Imperials misunderstand Nord culture, many Nords misunderstand the Empire. They see weakness where there is strategic patience. They see submission where there is calculation. They see cowardice where there is restraint. Nords view war as honour. Imperials view war as failure. Nords want a glorious death. Imperials want a functioning future. Nords value freedom above stability. Imperials value stability above freedom. Neither is wrong. Both are incompatible. This culture divide is the true cause of the war. Not the Concordat, not Ulfric, not the Empire, but two worldviews that cannot coexist. To most Stormcloak supporters, the Empire fights to maintain control. But this is not the truth. The Empire fights for Skyrim because it has no choice. If Skyrim leaves the Empire, Hammerfell falls next. If Hammerfell falls, the Dominion surrounds Cyrodiil. If Cyrodiil falls, the rest of Tamriel is already lost. From the Imperial perspective, losing Skyrim means losing the world. They fight not to dominate the province, but to ensure that the human races survive the next Aldmeri war. The Nords see control and the Imperials see survival. This is why the war is so tragic. Both sides believe they are saving the world. The outcome of the civil war is not just political, it is existential. If the Empire wins, Skyrim remains united but resentful. If the Stormcloaks win, Skyrim becomes free but vulnerable. In either case, the Empire remains fractured, uncertain, and confused. The Imperials are people caught between worlds, between gods and treaties, between tradition and survival, and between order and collapse. Their future depends not on the Legion, not on the Jarls, but on the Dragonborn, whose choice determines whether the Empire survives long enough to face the Dominion once more. And that is what makes their case so curious. They are the most influential race in Tamriel, yet at their weakest point in history. The Imperials are not evil, nor glorious, nor foolish. They are just desperate. They are a nation trying to hold together a crumbling world with diplomacy, treaties, and sheer stubborn endurance. They are the remnants of an empire that once shaped history, now struggling to stay relevant in the age of dragons and rebellion. The curious case of the Imperials is this: they are the rulers of Tamriel who no longer rule anything at all. And yet they fight on, because if they fall, the world falls with them. Skyrim is a land defined by conflict. It is a place where mountains echo with the cries of the past, and every ruin carries the memory of another war. But among all the battles that have scarred this frozen province, none are as diverse or as complicated as the Stormcloak Rebellion. To some, the Stormcloaks are patriots, heroes fighting to free their homeland from the iron grip of the Empire. To others, they are zealots, a band of narrow-minded rebels clinging to an ancient idea of Nord supremacy that has no place in the modern world. And at the centre of this conflict stands one man, Ulfric Stormcloak, Jarl of Windhelm, a warrior, a Thu'um wielder and a symbol of rebellion. Yet his cause and the movement that bears his name is not as simple as freedom versus oppression. It is a story woven from politics, faith, pride, and tragedy. This is the curious case of the Stormcloaks, a rebellion that claims to fight for Skyrim's soul, but may just as easily be tearing it apart. To understand the Stormcloaks, one must first understand the empire they rebel against. By the time of the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, the once mighty Septim Empire has withered into a shell of its former self. Decades of war with the Dominion, the Thalmor, have drained its strength. The signing of the White Gold Concordat, a humiliating peace treaty, forced the Empire to outlaw the worship of Talos, the divine hero god of mankind and the patron deity of the Nords. For Skyrim, this was sacrilege. Talos was no distant god to them. He was Tiber Septim, a Nord who rose to godhood, a conqueror who unified Tamriel. To forbid his worship was to deny Nord history, their faith, and their very identity. The Empire's compliance with the Concordat struck the Nords like a betrayal, and from that betrayal a rebellion was born. Every rebellion needs a leader, and the Stormcloaks found theirs in Ulfric Stormcloak, Jarl of Windhelm. A veteran of the Great War, Ulfric was captured by the Thalmor and imprisoned for years. When he returned, he brought with him both wisdom and wounds, and a burning conviction that Skyrim should never kneel again. To many, Ulfric embodies the ideal Nord, proud, fearless, unyielding. He speaks with the weight of tradition and the fury of the gods. His mastery of the Thu'um, the ancient voice, lends him with the aura of the legend, a man who wields the same power as the heroes of old. But Ulfric's story is not so clean. His use of the Thu'um to kill the High King in single combat divided the land. Some call it a fair duel, an honourable challenge rooted into ancient Nord customs. Others call it murder, a political assassination masked by tradition. Even among his allies, Ulfric's motives are questioned. Does he truly fight for Skyrim's freedom or for his own crown? Is he a liberator or an opportunist? That ambiguity is the essence of the Stormcloak Rebellion, noble in word but murky in action. The Stormcloak cause begins and ends in Windhelm, the oldest city in Skyrim and Ulfric's seat of power. Windhelm is more than a stronghold. It's a symbol. Its ancient walls date back to the first great hero of the Nords. It is cold, proud, and built from stone that remembers every war fought upon it. And yet, for all of its history, Windhelm is also a city divided. Inside its walls, Dunmer refugees crowd the Grey Quarter, living in poverty and resentment. The Argonians are kept outside the gates entirely. Racism and mistrust fester in the alleys, whispered behind tankards of mead. This is the paradox of the Stormcloaks, a movement that cries for freedom, yet often denies it to others. Ulfric speaks of Skyrim for the Nords, but Skyrim is not just Nords. It is also Elves, Argonians, Bretons, and countless others who call it home. In fighting to preserve his people's heritage, Ulfric risks repeating the very oppression he claims to resist. Windhelm, in all of its cold beauty and ugliness, mirrors the rebellion perfectly, noble at its core but surrounded by shadows. The Stormcloak's banner, blue marked with a bear, is a symbol of defiance. It flies above camps scattered across the tundra and mountains, a sign that the old Nord spirit refuses to die. To the common people, it represents pride, a chance to stand against an empire that has forgotten them. Farmers, hunters, and soldiers alike rally beneath it, seeing themselves not as rebels, but as guardians of Skyrim's soul. But that same banner also divides families. Brothers join opposite sides of the war. Cities like Whiterun are torn between loyalty and neutrality. Jarls must choose whether to honour the Empire or their heritage. The Stormcloak blue is not just the colour of rebellion, it's the colour of conflict, of frozen loyalty, of a nation uncertain whether it's fighting for freedom or fracturing itself beyond repair. Perhaps the greatest irony of the Stormcloak Rebellion is that, in trying to destroy the Thalmor's influence, they may just be strengthening it. Within the secret files of the Thalmor embassy lies a chilling truth. Ulfric Stormcloak was once their prisoner, and their pawn. They see his rebellion as useful, a means to weaken both Skyrim and the Empire so neither can stand against the Dominion when the next war comes. In other words, the Thalmor win no matter who loses. If the Stormcloaks succeed, Skyrim becomes a divided, isolated nation ripe for conquest. If they fail, the Empire emerges even more dependent on the Thalmor to maintain peace. It's a masterstroke of manipulation, and Ulfric, despite his pride, plays directly into their hands. This revelation transforms the rebellion from a story of independence to one of tragic irony. The Stormcloaks fight for freedom, but in doing so, they may be ensuring their own enslavement. At the heart of the Stormcloak cause lies religion, the worship of Talos, the ninth divine. For the Nords, Talos is more than a god. He is the living proof that men can ascend to divinity, that courage and will can challenge the power of gods themselves. His worship is an act of defiance, a reminder that men need not bow before Aldmeri, Dominion, or their cold, immortal arrogance. When the Empire outlawed Talos worship under the White Gold Concordat, it didn't just sign a treaty, it shattered the faith of an entire race of people. Stormcloaks carry that wound like a banner. In every prayer whispered beneath Windhelm's frozen statues, in every rallying cry shouted across battlefields, Talos is invoked as both patron and martyr. But here again lies contradiction. The Stormcloaks claim to fight for the right to worship freely. Yet within their ranks, non-Nords often find themselves unwelcome. The question remains, is the rebellion truly about faith, or about who is deemed worthy of it? Every war in Skyrim has its price, and the Stormcloak Rebellion is no exception. Villages burn, families scatter, cities that once traded freely now send spies and soldiers instead of caravans. The roads between Whiterun and Windhelm, once travelled by merchants, now run red with blood. Even the dragons, ancient apocalyptic beings, return amid this chaos, almost as if the gods themselves have judged Skyrim's pride. For all of their courage, the Stormcloaks do not grasp the full cost of their rebellion. A free Skyrim divided and weakened may not survive the storm to come. And yet, to the true believers, that cost is worth paying. Better to die a free Nord than live as an imperial slave. It is that conviction, both admirable and terrifying, that gives the Stormcloaks' cause its power. To understand the Stormcloaks' flaws, one must also understand their enemy. The Imperial Legion, led by General Tullius, sees the rebellion as reckless. To them, Skyrim's independence would doom not just the province, but the entire continent. By weakening the united front against the Dominion, Tullius himself respects Nord bravery, but views Ulfric as short-sighted, a man willing to burn the world for pride, and he is not entirely wrong. The Empire's argument is simple: peace now, strength later. Skyrim alone cannot stand against the Dominion, only a united empire can. Thus, the war becomes not one of good versus evil, but of ideals. Freedom versus unity, pride versus pragmatism. Both sides are right and both sides are wrong. This moral ambiguity is what makes the Stormcloaks so fascinating. They are neither heroes nor villains, but men caught between history and destiny. So what makes the Stormcloaks such a curious case in Skyrim's history? It is their paradoxical nature. They are both noble and flawed, heroic and hypocritical, honourable and blind. They fight for freedom, yet often deny it to others. They claim to defend their gods, yet risk empowering their enemies. They invoke ancient honour, yet wage a modern war of pride and blood. And perhaps that is what makes them so human. The Stormcloaks are not caricatures of good or evil. They are reflections of the player, of every person who has ever fought for something righteous but compromised in the process. Their story reminds us that rebellion is never clean, that heroism often carries a cost, and that the line between liberation and destruction is perilously thin. In Skyrim, where dragons rise and empires fall, the Stormcloak rebellion endures not as a victory or defeat, but as a question, one the Nords and the player must answer for themselves. When the war is over, when the banners are torn and the snow covers the graves, the Stormcloaks' camps still linger, quiet, abandoned, but not forgotten. Their blue flags fade in the cold wind, their mead barrels lie empty, but their voices remain in the songs of the people. Perhaps, in the end, that is their true legacy, not the cities they conquered or lost, but the spirit they rekindled. The Stormcloaks remind Skyrim that freedom, for all its cost, is worth remembering, that even flawed men can fight for something greater than themselves. And as the snow falls on Windhelm's ancient walls, one truth endures: Skyrim may not need the Stormcloaks anymore, but it will always still remember them.